Let's be real, there was something wild in the water during the 1980s, and Saturday morning cartoons slurped it up with a straw. The stuff that passed for kids' TV back then, half of it would send today's censors running for the hills. Ever watched an old favorite and thought, no way would this get made now? You're not alone. Get ready to rediscover 10 cartoons from the 80s so, out of bounds, modern networks wouldn't touch them with a mile-long pole. Ready for the jaw drops? The Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers. You might remember Galaxy Rangers as just another sci-fi shoot-'em-up with robots, laser pistols, and space cowboys, but look closer and you'll see why this cosmic western is collecting digital dust. From the very first episode, The Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers was all about frontier justice, set in a universe where humans have colonized the stars, rounded up the aliens, and handed out law and order with a blaster and a wink. Think classic cowboy flicks mashed up with Star Wars, but underneath all the cool gadgets and synth rock was a cocktail of ideas that just wouldn't pass muster in 2024. First off, this show loved its stereotypes. Entire alien races were written as not-so-subtle stand-ins for real-world cultures. You had primitive tribal aliens, space mafias with heavy accents, and villains whose voices and behaviors wouldn't fly in any writer's room today. The supposed good guys, the Rangers, routinely rode into new worlds, imposed their own brand of order, and barely blinked at the mess left behind. The Galaxy Rangers were basically space sheriffs with a license to do whatever it took, from blasting robots to bending local customs, all in the name of civilization. It's pure pulp, but now it reads like a crash course in outdated thinking. But it wasn't just the sci-fi colonialism. The violence was cranked up to 11. Shootouts, explosions, and physical fights weren't just a special treat, they were the main event. Some episodes start with a brawl and barely slow down. If a kid's show today featured this much laser fire and casual property destruction, parent groups would have a field day, and while the female Rangers were supposed to be empowered, they often got sidelined or thrown into the rescued by the boys cliché. Yet back then, kids lapped it up, and parents hardly blinked. Today, the very first script meeting would be a parade of red flags. The idea of saving alien planets while laughing off the fallout, not going to happen. The Adventures of the Galaxy Rangers will forever be an artifact of a time when sci-fi could be equal parts cool and cringe, and no one at the network was watching too closely. So, would it ever get a reboot in this century? Not a chance. Beverly Hills Teens. Think Saturday morning cartoons were all about lessons and good role models? Beverly Hills Teens is here to laugh in your face and then charge your parents' credit card. This show wasn't just a cartoon, it was a parade of designer labels, sports cars, plastic surgery jokes, and spoiled brats, all wrapped in pastel-colored luxury. On paper, it followed the adventures of ultra-rich teens living in mansions, driving Ferraris, and solving problems like getting last-minute tickets to a yacht party or being spotted in last season's shoes. If you think that sounds like Clueless for 6-year-olds, you're not wrong, but it's also a fever dream of 80s excess. The plot lines? Forget real-life challenges. These kids stressed over being seen at the right club, wearing the hottest brands, or getting their faces on the cover of Teen Scene magazine. The main villain, Bianca, was a masterclass in unapologetic mean-girling, manipulating, scheming, and sabotaging anyone who dared outshine her. Her plots usually involved some combination of gossip, blackmail, and wild stunts, but unlike modern shows, there was barely any comeuppance. Most episodes rewarded bad behavior with applause and a round of mocktail toasts. If a teen cartoon like this aired today, parents' groups would riot. Let's talk about the messaging. Beverly Hills Teens wasn't just tone-deaf. It was a symphony of materialism and classism. Poor kids, they didn't exist. Normal life, a joke. Every frame was designed to make viewers wish they were rich, skinny, and outrageously well-connected. Even the nice characters couldn't stop flaunting their wealth. The only real hardship was having your limo break down before the dance, or losing a diamond earring in the indoor pool. Looking back, it's a wonder any of us survived the onslaught of status anxiety. If this show dropped now, Twitter would melt down in minutes. Teachers and psychologists would be on the news, warning about warped self-image, entitlement, and social comparison. The only lesson kids learned was that being loaded made you a winner, and everyone else was background noise. Beverly Hills Teens is pure, unfiltered 80s, and it's never coming back to air. Unless you count reruns on nostalgia channels, but let's be honest. Watching it now feels more like a dare than a treat. The Littles. If you ever felt like you were being watched from the walls as a kid, blame The Littles. This cartoon, on the surface, a cute story about tiny, human-like creatures living behind baseboards, was actually a lesson in how to make hiding in terror seem charming. It ran on Saturday mornings and followed the adventures of Tom, the only human who knows about the Littles, as he helps his pint-sized friends evade the ever-looming threat of exposure and extermination. But beneath the secret door fantasy, this show is loaded with ideas that would have networks scrambling for the do not air button today. Let's start with the premise. The Littles aren't just quirky, they're literal stand-ins for the other, an entire race forced to hide, constantly fearing that the larger society will discover, capture, or wipe them out. The main villain, Dr. Hunter, isn't just bad. He's obsessed with finding, trapping, and exploiting the Littles for fame and science. Think about it. Nearly every episode features animal traps, dangerous chemicals, and threats of dissection, all aimed at creatures the show frames as helpless, different, and always on the defensive. In today's world, the allegory is clear and problematic. No children's show now would lean so heavily on the fear of being hunted down for simply being different, especially using coded language that mirrors real-world histories of persecution and paranoia. But it doesn't stop there. The Littles leans hard into the idea that safety means never trusting outsiders, always running, and keeping secrets at all costs. As a message to kids, that's a pretty bleak take on community and friendship. Some episodes even show Tom lying to his own family and friends to protect the Littles, blurring the lines between good intentions and flat-out deception. That's a conversation starter for sure, but not the kind networks want to have with parents. Then there's the handling of danger. The Littles get into scrapes that would make OSHA inspectors faint, crushing gears, flooding pipes, makeshift flying machines, and the ever-present threat of poison or pest control. When they get hurt, it's either played for laughs or brushed aside with a "we're all fine." And don't forget the rampant animal cruelty. Rats, cats, and other would-be predators are dispatched in ways that would set off alarms with modern animal rights groups. Looking back, The Littles is the kind of show that gave kids nightmares and adults a free pass to overlook some seriously troubling themes. Today, a cartoon like this would need a complete rewrite to even get a pitch meeting, let alone air. Nostalgia aside, some stories are better left inside the walls. Brave Star. When people talk about 1980s cartoons that meant well but aged like milk, Brave Star is Exhibit A. This animated space western was a fever dream from Filmation Studios, set on the planet New Texas, where Marshall Brave Star, a Native American hero, fights to keep peace with the help of his trusty talking horse and a grab bag of high-tech gadgets. The pitch was daring for its time, a Native American lead in a genre dominated by white cowboys, with lessons about teamwork, justice, and respecting nature. Sounds great, right? But wow, does it stumble into every stereotype and awkward trope you can imagine. From the start, Brave Star wanted to be progressive. The main character has mystical spirit animal powers like Eyes of the Hawk and Strength of the Bear, which he calls on in battle. While intended as a tribute to indigenous spirituality, the execution is pure Hollywood fantasy. Every lesson about culture is filtered through cheesy dialogue and magical powers, turning centuries of tradition into Saturday morning spectacle. The show isn't malicious, but it's so clumsy with its cultural borrowing that you'll find yourself wincing more than cheering. And it doesn't end there. Most of the villains Brave Star faces are coded as savages or bandits, many with accents, mannerisms, and outfits borrowed from outdated Old West cliches. Aliens on New Texas often fill the role of outsiders, painted as suspicious or backward, until Brave Star rides in to set them straight. The message, intentional or not, is that true peace comes when the hero's way of life takes over, hardly the kind of inclusivity we expect today. Let's not forget the action. Brave Star is loaded with blaster battles, horse chases, and old-school fisticuffs. The solutions to most problems? A little wisdom, followed by a lot of laser fire. If you think kids' shows these days are too soft, just watch Brave Star body slam a villain through a wall or pull out his Neutra laser to end an argument. Parents groups today would be sending strongly worded emails before the first commercial break. Yet, for all its faults, Brave Star is a time capsule, an attempt to mix action, diversity, and morality, all wrapped in a saddlebag of 80s cheese. Would it air today? Not unless every episode came with a disclaimer, a rewrite, and maybe a cultural consultant on speed dial. Rude Dog and the Dweebs? Some cartoons aim to inspire. Rude Dog and the Dweebs just wanted to be as cool and as rude as possible. The title tells you everything you need to know. Rude Dog, the main character, is a street-smart punk rock mutt who runs an auto shop with a ragtag bunch of misfits, each with their own loud accent and exaggerated personality. It's pure 1980s rebellion, served with a wink and a snarl. The plot is barely there. Most episodes revolve around Rude Dog and his crew outsmarting the local dog catcher or causing chaos around town. But what the show really specialized in was attitude. Rude Dog doesn't just bend the rules, he breaks them, and then lectures the dweebs on how to be yourself by talking back to authority, pulling pranks, and chasing thrills. The dialogue is loaded with catchphrases and slang meant to sound edgy, but today it lands somewhere between dated and straight-up mean. And the supporting cast? It's a masterclass in stereotypes. You've got Caboose, the slow-talking Southerner, Satch, the Brooklyn wise guy, and Tweak, whose hyperactive antics are played for laughs but read now as cringy. The only female dweeb, Reggie, is a snarky valley girl type who exists mainly to roll her eyes at the boys. Each character is defined by their accent, their quirks, and their total inability to follow rules, none of which would pass a network pitch session today. But what really sends Rude Dog and the Dweebs over the edge is the attitude toward authority and consequences. There are none. The dog catcher is an idiot, adults are clueless, and bad behavior is celebrated, not punished. Rude Dog openly mocks anyone who tries to enforce the rules, turning every episode into a love letter to mischief and disrespect. If your parents ever wondered why you started using words like lame or bogus, blame this show. The animation is just as wild, bright neon colors, graffiti backdrops, and character designs that look like they were doodled in a school notebook during detention. Watching it now feels like being trapped in a time capsule of 80s MTV culture, minus the music and plus a lot of barking. Would Rude Dog and the Dweebs air today? Not a chance. Its total disregard for respect, its parade of stereotypes, and its proud celebration of bad behavior make it a perfect storm of what not to do in modern children's television. The only thing more outdated than Rude Dog's attitude is the idea that being rude makes you cool. Kid video. If you ever wanted to see what happens when MTV and Saturday morning cartoons collide, look no further than Kid Video. This 1984 oddity took 4 real-life teenagers from a garage band and sucked them into an animated dimension called the flip side, where the laws of physics and taste no longer applied. Their enemy was Master Blaster, a sleazy music mogul who kidnapped them so he could harness their musical talent. If that sounds weird, it gets even weirder when you realize every episode was basically a music video disguised as a cartoon plot. First off, let's talk about the premise. Imagine telling parents today, your kids will watch a cartoon where 4 teens get abducted into a world ruled by a villain who wants to exploit their creative energy for his own gain. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Master Blaster is an over-the-top parody of the most exploitative music industry managers you can imagine, always scheming to trap the kids and steal their sound. He's basically a walking lesson in what not to trust if you're a young performer, and yet somehow it was played for laughs. Every episode of Kid Video crams in actual live-action performances by the band, who perform original songs with music videos that could pass for low-budget MTV segments. The visual style is a psychedelic fever dream, breakdancing cats, talking cars, and colors that make your eyes water. Half the time, the kids solve problems not by thinking or teamwork, but by dancing, singing, or pulling out a magic boombox that changes reality with a song. Today, this kind of cross-promotion would be called manipulative and totally age-inappropriate, blurring the line between show and advertisement. Back then, nobody even blinked. And the characterizations? The show leans hard on 80s cliches. The bad boy leader, the shy keyboardist, the funny guy with weird hair, and the token female bandmate whose role is to be supportive and occasionally get rescued. Most of the humor is built around pratfalls, slapstick, and zany misunderstandings that usually end with the cast literally rocking their way out of danger. There's also a parade of one-off characters clearly meant as parodies of celebrities, record executives, and pop culture fads. You get villains who act like used car salesmen, supporting characters who talk in thick Hollywood agent accents, and more than a few gags about fame, fortune, and the party scene. The satire is broad, but in hindsight, it's not hard to spot undertones that would have watchdog groups on high alert. Could Kid Video ever air today? No way. Between the adult undertones, the questionable premise, and the non-stop music marketing, it's a relic of an era when cartoons were a playground for every out-there idea, no matter how inappropriate it might look now. If anything, it's proof that, in the 1980s, the line between kids' show and record label ad was just a suggestion. Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids' 1980s run. Hey, hey, hey. If you grew up in the 80s, you probably remember those words echoing from your TV every weekend. Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids started in the 1970s, but new episodes and endless reruns made it a staple for a whole generation of kids deep into the 80s. The show's premise was simple. Follow a crew of neighborhood friends as they navigate the ups and downs of urban life, learn valuable lessons, and play in their junkyard band. On the surface, it was about friendship and morals. But under the hood, this show is a time capsule of ideas and stereotypes that would never fly today. For starters, the character names say it all. Fat Albert, Mushmouth, Dumb Donald, Weird Harold, Bucky, and Rudy. Every kid is a one-note personality, their quirks played up for laughs. Mushmouth's speech is unintelligible. Dumb Donald wears a pink stocking cap over his whole face and is, well, supposed to be dumb. The show meant well, trying to spotlight real issues like bullying, honesty, and respect. But it often did so with humor that's now considered insensitive. Making fun of speech impediments, learning differences, or body type, that's not just outdated, it's a complete non-starter for modern audiences. But the show didn't just stumble on character names. Its setting and storylines painted a very specific view of city life, one that's often grim, rough, and loaded with heavy themes. Episodes tackled everything from poverty and broken families to substance abuse and crime, usually with the gang learning a lesson after a big mistake. While this was revolutionary in its day, today it'd be flagged for stereotyping and for showing such bleak circumstances as just the way things are. The show's attempts at realism sometimes crossed into outright parody, with adults who were either clueless or cartoonishly strict, and kids who always needed to be set straight. And of course, there's the giant shadow cast by its creator. Bill Cosby was once considered America's favorite TV dad, but with his name now linked to scandal and criminal cases, the entire legacy of Fat Albert is radioactive. No network, streaming service, or cable channel wants to touch it, even if the show's message was about doing the right thing. It's not just a case of bad timing, it's a complete cultural about-face. So, could Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids ever come back? Not a chance. The names, the voices, the humor, the real-life baggage, it's all a crash course in how fast society's ideas about representation, respect, and role models can change. The only place you'll see Fat Albert now is in history books, as a warning and a relic of what used to pass for progress. The Dukes. Take a popular live-action series full of high-speed chases, pratfall humor, and controversial imagery, then turn it into a cartoon for kids. That's exactly what Hanna-Barbera did in 1983 with The Dukes. Inspired by the hit show The Dukes of Hazzard, this animated spin-off put cousins Bo, Luke, Daisy, and Uncle Jesse on a worldwide road race, dodging trouble and causing chaos with their bright orange muscle car, the General Lee. If you think the leap from grown-up TV to kids' cartoon would mean toning things down, think again. The Dukes somehow managed to preserve everything questionable from the original show. Let's start with the elephant in the room. The General Lee's giant Confederate flag plastered across its roof. The flag is in nearly every scene, presented without context or comment. In the 1980s, this was just good old boy fun. Today, that symbol is instantly recognized as a marker of racism and division, not something you'd slap on a kid's toy or cartoon. No network would allow it, and for good reason. But that's just the beginning. The show revels in rural Southern stereotypes: the dumb Sheriff Roscoe, the bumbling deputies, and Boss Hogg, the corrupt and greedy county commissioner who's always trying to stop the Dukes with cartoonish schemes. Episodes often show the cousins breaking the law, outrunning the police, and getting into trouble, all with a wink and a smile. The lesson isn't about respecting authority or solving problems. It's about being clever enough to dodge the rules and come out on top. It's basically a blueprint for reckless behavior, sugar-coated with slapstick gags. There's almost no diversity in the cast, unless you count the various foreign villains they meet on their around-the-world race, each one an over-the-top stereotype with a goofy accent or silly outfit. The only woman, Daisy Duke, is the sidekick who occasionally gets a moment in the spotlight, but is mostly there for eye candy or comic relief. Would the Dukes air now? Absolutely not. Between the Confederate iconography, the glorification of rule-breaking, and the endless stream of stereotypes, this cartoon is locked up in the vault for good. Watching it now is like opening a time capsule of attitudes that have been left behind, and for once, that's a good thing. Mr. T. Step aside, superheroes. In the 1980s, Saturday mornings belonged to one man with a mohawk, a gold chain, and more attitude than a room full of wrestlers, Mr. T. Mr. T, the cartoon was a fever dream brought to you by Ruby Spears Productions and the endless charisma of the man himself. The premise: take Mr. T, put him in charge of a diverse team of teen gymnasts, and send them on wild adventures solving mysteries across America. If that sounds like the world's weirdest field trip, you're not wrong. On paper, it's a celebration of teamwork, diversity, and staying in school. But watch more than 5 minutes and you'll see why this show is pure 1980s mayhem that would never fly today. First, the character tropes hit hard: the smart Asian kid with glasses and a constant book, the sassy black girl whose lines are all attitude, the nerdy white guy who always messes things up, and the comic relief sidekicks who talk in accents that would get a casting director fired in 2024. Every character is a stereotype, flattened for laughs and easy storytelling. And then there's Mr. T himself, a force of nature who delivers life lessons by literally bench-pressing bad guys or breaking down doors. He's always preaching about respect, hard work, and doing the right thing, but the show can't help itself. Every lesson ends in a wrestling match, a chase scene, or a roundhouse punch. Violence is just part of the toolkit. Today's networks would never approve a kid's cartoon where the main hero's answer to most problems is a flying tackle or tossing a villain in a dumpster. But the wildest part? The show can't decide if it's set in reality or some alternate universe where every city is run by bumbling crooks, every authority figure is clueless, and justice is a punchline. Episodes routinely show the team breaking into warehouses, stealing cars, or blowing things up, all while Mr. T wags his finger about doing your homework. The mixed messages are almost legendary. And let's not ignore the endless parade of accents and catchphrases. "I pity the fool" was just the beginning. Supporting characters spoke in every accent imaginable, from Deep South to exaggerated New York, often to the point of parody. These days, that approach is a cultural no-go. Looking back, Mr. T was pure energy and optimism, but the execution is so out of date, it belongs in a museum, not a streaming playlist. It's a snapshot of a time when all you needed for a kid's show was a star, a wild concept, and a total disregard for modern sensitivities. Would it air now? Not unless every episode came with a disclaimer, a trigger warning, and a lengthy apology from the writing team. Dennis the Menace, 1986 to 1988. Before Home Alone gave kids the green light to wreck the place, Dennis the Menace showed American children that being a walking tornado of trouble could be hilarious. Based on the classic comic strip, the 1980s animated version of Dennis ramped up the chaos, sending the pint-sized prankster on a mission to turn every day into a disaster for adults, neighbors, and especially poor Mr. Wilson. Let's set the scene. Dennis is supposed to be lovable, but what he really is unstoppable. He breaks windows, floods yards, trashes kitchens, and generally turns suburban life upside down with a grin on his face. The worst part? He never really faces consequences. At the end of every episode, grown-ups either shrug it off or secretly admit they needed more fun in their lives. The message for viewers is simple: create mayhem and you'll be celebrated for your spirit. But beneath the slapstick, there's a darker edge. Dennis's jokes often verge on cruelty, with neighbors and authority figures suffering everything from humiliation to actual injuries. Mr. Wilson, the eternal victim, spends half the series on the edge of a breakdown, his sanity fraying as Dennis accidentally destroys his life again. Today, that's less cute and more seriously concerning. Parents now would have a field day with the lack of discipline and the glamorization of breaking rules. Kids' shows are expected to teach something: empathy, accountability, kindness, not just how to dodge punishment and drive adults up the wall. The Dennis of the 1980s was a poster child for unchecked chaos. Networks now demand positive messaging, and this show would be sent straight to the timeout corner. There's more. The cartoon dabbled in the kind of mischief that would get a kid suspended, or worse, today. Dennis rides his bike through traffic, messes with electrical outlets, trespasses, and even gets other kids to join in. The show's adults are either oblivious or so outmatched that they seem helpless. The boys will be boys defense is now a relic, and this show is proof that not everything from the past needs a revival. Would Dennis the Menace air now? Absolutely not. Not unless the entire series was rewritten as a cautionary tale on what not to do. It's a case study in how much standards have changed and why some mischief is best left in the past. So, which of these cartoons would you dare to binge, knowing they're locked in a vault for good reason? The 1980s gave us a wild ride, but not everything ages like fine wine. Let us know in the comments. Did any of these shape your childhood or leave you shaking your head? Hit that subscribe button if you want more dives into TV's weirdest corners, and share this with a friend who thinks cartoons were always wholesome. Here's to the chaos we survived.